Hi everyone, it's Henry here, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our Emperor's Children journey that we've been painting away for the last few weeks with the, I keep wanting to say cacophony, what they called in 40k, the Noise Marines, of course, the Noise Marines and the regular troops. And in the regular troops video I sort of spoke about a few things at the end that I would do if I wanted to elevate the paint job slightly. And I was sat looking at the leftover box that Games Workshop had sent through to us for review, and I saw that I still had the Lord Exultant in there. I thought, what a good opportunity to make him up, paint him up, and just show you those couple of extra steps that I would do if I was army painting and creating an entire army using that purple scheme we used in the previous video. So we'll cover the various sort of new details that we've got on this miniature, but we'll also go over certain things we've done before and what we can do to take them just to that one step above, just to help elevate those important characterful centerpiece models. So I hope you enjoy. Let's paint. So this is very much meant as a companion to that previous video. So there's certain things, I'm not going to go through everything in full detail when I've covered it previously, but we'll sort of touch on the stages and then what the additional steps are going to be. So obviously the most impactful part of this whole scheme is that lovely purple armor color. And the way we achieved that was by initially doing our pre-shade with a couple of metallics. So we used a dark silver metallic. In this case, I used that steel by Vallejo metal color series. But again, any dark silver will be absolutely fine. It's the black in our normal sort of white and black pre-shade. And then the, I suppose, slight point of difference we had was using this pink metallic to do our highlights with. So it's called Tourmaline Alchemy. And I've tried to leave certain elements of this in full time. At normal speed, and the full time it took me to do them. Again, just hopefully to help clarify perhaps anything that we didn't cover in the last video, or some of the things people often ask. And again, thank you for asking for videos like this. We create the content for you guys because we hope it will help you enjoy your painting a bit more. And the only way we know what to do with that really is to hear from you all. So guys over on the Discord, the guys and girls over there are absolutely brilliant. We've got topic suggestions there, and the Discord's always free. There's, anyone can join up for that. The links are down in the description. But we'll also talk about something coming up a little bit later on for another way for us to interact with you guys a little bit better. But you can see here, I'm using that Tourmaline Alchemy to create those areas of highlight. And you may notice I keep spraying off to check it. My airbrush was knackered and I was waiting for a replacement part on it, and I was kind of forcing it through and it wasn't working very well, but thankfully midway through filming the new nozzle turned up, but I dropped it and cracked it slightly, so just why it was being a bit inconsistent. But there hopefully you can see those relatively sort of broad areas of highlights we did, and that's where we stopped on the previous version. And then people ask, well, how would you edge highlight it? How do you edge highlight these clear schemes? Well, there's a variety of ways we can go about it, and we'll touch on two in this video. So first of all, you can do your edge highlight at this stage, at the pre-shade stage of the model. So if this was a normal grayscale pre-shade, we could go in and do this with pure white, and that would work absolutely fine on a normal airbrush sort of scheme. If this was a different metallic scheme, we could go in and use a bright silver. Here I'm just going to use the Tourmaline Alchemy and go in, and I'm not going to highlight every single edge at all, but areas of sort of focal points, so up top of the chest, around the head, the hand, that lovely hip plate, things like that, I do want to draw a bit more attention to, so I will use my brush to accentuate those areas. And actually there's certain areas where perhaps it just moves into shadow in one of those areas of focal points, and that nice crisp sort of bright edge highlight with the pink can make a huge difference, just to help sort of define all of the details and the things that we've got going on in that area. So once you're happy with that, and again, by no means is this going around every single edge on the model, you probably could dry brush it. If you're not confident with your edge highlighting, you could probably just gently dry brush that on and get a very, very similar effect. The last video I really tried to focus on showing how you can achieve things if perhaps your fine motor skills aren't as good as you'd like them to be. And I want to try and stick as much as I can in this video with sort of that as well. Inevitably, certain detail areas that there's no sort of getting away from the fact that you need a fairly steady hand to replicate them. But where possible, where there's alternatives, I'll try and bring them up. But here you can see I've sprayed on the purple, and I've done our oil wash like last time. And here's, once it's dry, this is where we're left. And you can see those focal points, those bits I was on now, particularly that hip plate he's got. the difference that little edge highlight has just made. And I think it's really nice. It's quite subtle, but again, because metallic schemes and clear schemes and things like that, there's a lot of bang for your buck really with gaming armies. Even though it's subtle, it still shows up fantastically well when the light hits it. Now, if you wanted to push it a bit further, you can go in and do the edge highlighting at this stage. Now, I've done both, and actually you absolutely can do both, so pre-shade stage and at this stage. And by focusing this step just on those very sort of fine highlight areas, you almost create two different colors of edge highlighting. So you have a slightly lighter highlight in more areas of shadow, and then you have a really bright one in the areas where the light is bouncing off and you want to draw people's eye to. Or you could just do it at this stage. Or you could just do it at the previous stage and have it a little bit more subtle. But again, I'm just carrying on here with the Tourmaline Alchemy. We could have swapped the colours around if we wanted, but I'm trying to keep it really tight, really army painting focused. So I'm going in here with the Tourmaline Alchemy and just concentrating on those areas that I want to draw the attention to. And essentially refining what I've done before. And I suppose refining is a lot of what we're doing here on this character model. I would say he's only taking me about the same time as maybe 3 of the troops took to paint, and I think that's a really good sort of proportionate amount of time. You noticed I got a little bit of the metallic on his chest where I didn't want it. Another nice thing about doing these clear schemes is they've got a kind of glossy finish to them. So all I did there was just wet that with a little bit of water, and it was about 2-3 minutes later. I could just go back and gently wipe that bit off the purple, and there was no danger to the paint, and it came off nice and easy. And here you go. So I've been around the whole model and done it. And now, again, I'm just taking a minute or two longer just to check, right, those really key areas. Have I got it looking how I want it to look? And just reinforcing some of those shiny bits. I'm thoroughly enjoying painting these Emperor's Children. I've no intentions of an army of them for 40k anyway. But yeah, as I'm refining the scheme more and more, the temptation for some heresy ones is pretty strong, I won't lie. And then for the white areas, in this case I chose to do his backpack white as well. I'm just going to use Ulhuan Grey Air. It's an off-white. It's really covers really easily. And if you were trying to do this scheme without an airbrush, this is probably the white paint that I would work up to. I know it's an off-white, but it completely sells itself as white once it's on the model. It's absolutely fine. Although it's an air paint, it's nice to use with the brush as well. So if you're wondering how to do it, I would follow the recipe in the last video, and I would replace Tamiya flat white with this one if you're using a brush. Now, just wanted to say a huge thank you to those of you over on Patreon that support us. You enable myself and Andy to do this full time. We're going to be bringing on Ben soon as well in a slightly different capacity. So the team is growing, and that means our output can grow as well, hopefully in quality and quantity. And we're only able to do that thanks to the support that you guys give us over there. So you get your videos over here on YouTube, but you're also getting much more in-depth, generally display level stuff over on Patreon. So Andy's just finished his absolutely incredible Golden Demon piece. I won't show pictures here because I don't want to spoil it, because I don't think it's revealed till tomorrow, but go and check it out. And he's done a full log on how he's done everything on there. If for any reason you can't support us over there, then your likes, your subscribes, your comments on here, if you're enjoying the content that we're doing, they make a huge difference as well, and I really, really do appreciate them. Now, obviously, one of the elements of this model that is different to the ones we painted previously are the robes. So the sort of cape and the loinclothy thing, toga, I guess, a bit like a toga, right? And this was going to be a great opportunity to get an additional colour in. So I'm going to do a simple black and white pre-shade on it. And actually the sub-assembly of this model, absolutely brilliant. It is ever so easy to paint these two elements of the robe separately and then glue them onto the miniature. Really happy with the sub-assembly on that. It's going to be a bit more awkward otherwise. If I wasn't able to do them in the sub-assembly, I would simply brush paint this. It's going to take longer. There's no two ways about that. It will take longer to get the same effect, but we've got plenty of videos out there to do with brush blending and how we would do the cloaks and stuff. So I will try and link those up the top, but if you go and search for things like our Sisters of Battle stuff we've done, there's quite a lot of normal brush blending in that, and our Power Weapons one, which I'll link to later on as well. If you can see here, I'm just using the airbrush because it's a brilliant tool for army painting and just to create light and dark. So I'm pretending that my airbrush essentially is the light that is shining down and making sure I angle the model in such a way that it only can hit the areas that would be facing upwards towards the light. Now you notice there I'd applied it a little bit too heavy in one area and I could still see that the paint was really wet. When it's like that, just leave it. Don't try and spray over it. You'll end up getting bumpy paint and stuff. You'll move it around and get horrible ridges and stuff. And when it was as thick as it was there, don't even try and use a hairdryer, because the chances are you'll blow it around as well and create those ridges. Just put it to the side, work on something else. It'll only take a minute or two for it to dry properly before you can then carry on. But I decided to use the same colour that I had painted a few of the tassels on the previous Power Armoured unit, which is this sort of jade colour, this Cabalite green. And again, here we see just the beauty of a pre-shade and being able to apply the paint over the top in a translucent manner. There's sort of translucent layers, which we can very easily with the airbrush. It's just glazing, but we're just using a different tool to do it with. So a few layers of the Cabalite green through the airbrush. All my paints I'm thinning here just with normal airbrush thinner. You'll notice I thinned the Tamiya with the Tamiya thinner. The rest of them I'm just thinning with the normal Vallejo airbrush thinner I've got on the desk at the minute. And I'm thinning it down, probably at least 2 drops of thinner to paint. So pretty dilute consistency that we're going with, because I want that pre-shade to show through underneath. And here I'm just going to go in and push those shadows a little. So if we have a look on the colour wheel, we can see that purple and green work very nicely together. We can shade either with either. So I've used a little shyish purple. If my Drucci Violet hadn't gone like porridge, I've no idea why it has. It's gone really disgusting in the pot. I'd have used that instead. A little bit more saturated, a bit more of an exciting purple. But in the end, it was no good to use. It was spraying all horrible little bits out of it. So I just used the shyish purple, which is fine. It's just not quite as in your face, which is a bit of a shame, because there's not really any subtlety on this this miniature, so there's no real need for that. And then going in with a nice simple highlight to finish using Cygor Green, which again I've thinned to a similar consistency as the Cabalite. And I've done them in that order so that if any of those shadows I had accidentally sprayed onto some surfaces of highlight, I can go and fix that up with the highlight here. Now, I'm not going to go on and do any brushwork on the cape. You absolutely could. That would elevate the model even further, but I'm really trying to keep it simple here. One little area here, I didn't push it together well enough to create a nice flush join. You can see, so it looks a little bit weird there. I don't really care. It's a tutorial video. I'm not using this model for anything, so I'm not going to stress out about ripping it apart and putting it together again more properly. But that's just to say, if you guys are going to go with this model, just make sure that join there you get lined up really nicely. There's some little locator lugs and stuff in the shoulder pad. I don't know why. Perhaps I still had a bit of blue tack or something in there, and it just prevented the join being as flush as it could be. Excuse me. So there's tons of options on this model. I thought this was kind of the most exciting, most imposing one. And he's got this power spear. And this is probably the only element of the model I'm not terribly happy with. But I want to take you through the process, and I'll explain why in the end. We just want to do a nice, simple, bright, metallic power weapon. I didn't initially want to do the classic coloured power weapon because I thought that would be too much given the cloak. So I thought, okay, let's do it in metallics. So we base it in a nice sort of middle silver, dura-aluminium I'm using here, but it's nice neutral sort of silver. And I'm going to use a darker silver. So again, I'm going to use steel, so the colour that we use to base coat our armour in, to put the shadows in. Now, I will link up a video here, which goes through sort of painting a power weapon in that traditional flat colour scheme. And we talk about glazing. And I'm just following exactly the same stages here, but just using metallic paints instead to glaze them together. The main reason I'm not so happy with this is I didn't dilute my paint enough, and it ended up with it being a little bit lumpy. And because of that, because of the way the metallics reflect the light when it hits them, it shows up the lumps and bumps. I was a little bit disappointed in myself for that one. I still think it's the right choice, probably colour-wise, to do. Here you can see I'm adding a little bit of the Emerald Alchemy just into the highlight, just to give it a little bit of that green. Yeah, I still think it was the right thing to do. I just should have executed it a little bit better. And I was simply rushing and sort of let myself down on that one. And if this model was going to be for my army, all I would have done was taken a cotton bud. I'd have put some isopropyl alcohol on it. I'd have rubbed that down the blade to strip it right back to the plastic. Then I've done, just started the process again. Would have been absolutely fine. Now, this whopping great Slanesh symbol he's got on his back, super cool, and felt like too good of an opportunity to not do something a little bit different with that. So we're going to use this nice pink copper colour called Screaming Bell. It's by Games Workshop. It doesn't have the best coverage, so I think it took about 3 coats to get a fairly smooth coverage on it. But as I mentioned earlier, metallics just do so much work for you. So you can see here, that's just a nice base coat of that Screaming Bell, and it already looks fab. And you can see under my painting lamp where our highlights should be. So all I'm going to do now is get a lighter colour and colour in those areas with it. In this case, it was fulgurite copper. Oh, there we go on the screen. Fulgurite copper. So I wanted to keep that sort of orangey pink look to it. And so I'm just colouring in the areas that I can already see the light shining off and creating those highlights for me. And then he's got two little dangly bits from his head, sort of earring type things coming off his horns. I chose to do them in the same way as well, just to try and create that nice little triangle at the top of the model with that. And then it was time to do the oil wash, just as we do in the previous video or on the previous scheme. And I chose to do this at this stage so that I could then go and work on the head while this oil wash was drying. Again, trying to be as efficient as possible. And you'll notice as the process is going on, I'm doing a little bit here and there on the base. And again, it's all just to try and maximize sort of drying time and efficiency. So the face I've painted in exactly the same way that I've painted the faces on the Noise Marines and the bear head actually on the power armor thing. So again, I'll make sure that those videos are linked up to. And all I'm doing is going back in with the brush here with Rakarth Flesh to pick out a few of the details. But I'm a great believer in the sculpts doing a lot of work for us as well when it comes to character miniatures. So I feel that you can paint them in a very similar way to your troops miniatures, and simply by dint of the fact that there is more detail and there's more gubbins and stuff on them, they're going to look cooler. But one thing I did do here was I added a little sort of turquoise glaze or wash in around his eyes. I used a Eidolon Green here. You could use any kind of turquoise coloured wash or particularly saturated turquoise paint and just thin it down with some water. It doesn't matter. And yeah, just washing this in around his eyeballs. And then eyeballs, I've just used an off-white. You could use Ulthuan Grey. I used a colour called Pale Blue here, but Ulthuan Grey would work great for this. And we've already got it on the desk because we've been using it, haven't we, for some other elements on the miniature. And again, I'm a great believer in that for army painting, to have a limited set of paints. You know, so you're not always having to dig through your things. You can have them in a little dish on the desk, and they're always within reach. And then it's time for finishing touches. So I didn't do this on the power armored stuff, but I think it's absolutely worth it on the characters. The oil wash will have slightly dulled down some of the metals. So all I'm going to do is go back in with the brightest colour on them. So in this case, it's the Retributor Gold for the gold and a brighter silver for the silver. I'm just going to pick out the odd edge, the odd rivet, things like that. And for me, it's, it's 1 minute per colour, but it really, really does make a difference, I think, particularly with metallics. It just gives them that little bit of shine back that, that they're so good, for having. Particularly the studs and stuff on his chaps, I think it worked really, really well for. But yeah, great mini. Really, really enjoyable to paint. So there he is, all finished up with the basing done as well. Again, exactly the same. So I've really, really tried to imagine if I was sitting down, I've just got the new Emperor's Children box through, I've got everything out, I'm in the flow, the hype is still there. I've got to try and break the back of the project before the next exciting thing comes out to catch my eye or turn my head. So we're rolling straight in. You've painted your 20 or whatever troops you've got in there. I can never remember the names of them. Tormentors, something like that. The normal power armored dudes. And we're going to roll straight into our Lord Exultant. And in fact, we could do much of him at the same time as we were doing those troops as well. And I've stuck him next to them as well. I hope you can see how I think they work very well together. There's lots of ways to go about army painting in the sense of, do you paint your characters to the same level as the rest of your army? Do you paint them way, way better and your troops much more basic? I don't really think there's a right and a wrong way at all. It's just what works for you. And I think for me, when it comes to army painting, I'm always willing to adapt and willing to change. And I think I suppose I'm probably somewhere in the middle on it. I don't want my characters to look infinitely better, like as in like a different painted model to the rest of my troops. But I appreciate I probably do have to spend a little bit more time on them. And actually, I'm starting to wonder whether that means I have to spend actually a little bit less time on the troops to give myself more time on the character miniatures, rather than simply increasing the entire time of the project by adding that on to the characters. But we'll see. I'm going to talk about that over the year, particularly the summer, I'd like to kick off. I mentioned in the last video, I think I'd like to start a new army project over the summer, but we'll talk about that more in that video. So I really hope you've enjoyed the Emperor's Children stuff. That's it for now with these guys. When they get their next wave of stuff out, I plan to do that Flawless Hosts video using the Flawless Blades minis. I think they're really cool, and it's a scheme I think could be good fun. But please let me know down in the comments if there's other things you'd like me to cover. Also, let me know in the comments if you've liked having the 3 videos to do with this release. That's a lot more than we tend to do for a release, but to be honest with you, I've just really enjoyed painting them. They're very different to the sort of models I often paint, albeit marine still. But yeah, really enjoyed myself. So I hope you guys have been able to glean the odd little bit here and there that might help you out with enjoying your own Emperor's Children. And another way that you guys are going to be able to let me know what you'd like, and I alluded to earlier, is we're going to be moving to Twitch. I say moving. We're going to be starting up a Twitch channel. That's not to replace the tutorials on here and Patreon. Those will stay exactly as they are. But we're going to try and use Twitch more as that platform as a way to engage and interact with you guys. So we're starting that off with just a hobby hangout stream for a couple of hours this coming Monday at 10 o'clock. In the morning BS British summertime. I will pop the link down in the description. I'd really appreciate if you could go and give the channel a follow and tune in and join us on the streams whenever you're able to. I say they're literally there just to relax, to chat, ask questions, talk about the hobby, get excited about it all, and just engage a little bit more, because it can be kind of lonely doing these videos, and I really do appreciate see all the comments and those of you that are there for the premieres and stuff in the chat. I find it very rewarding. So I thought maybe Twitch is an ideal platform for us to have more of a go with that on, and keep YouTube for those tutorials. So we'll be doing the streams, we'll be doing the podcast, and we'll be doing some feedback shows and stuff over on there. So if that interests you, consider going and checking it out. Any questions, as always, pop them down in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks ever so much for all of your support. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Whilst I was doing the last bit of filming for this video, the rather sad news came through that Paul Sawyer had passed away. So I'll talk about this a little bit more in the podcast, perhaps next week, or the hobby stream. For those of you that don't know, Paul Sawyer was an absolute sort of titan of hobby. He was an editor of White Dwarf Games Workshop back in the 90s, known as Fat Bloke then, and since he went on to work and do an awful lot of Warlord games right up until he passed. It's pretty sad. Thoughts go out to all his friends and family, and I just want to say thank you to him. Really, there's I would say that a few people that had more of an impact on me as a young hobbyist, and just the sheer sort of joy that can be had from this hobby. So yeah, really sad news. Go and check out some posts or whatever from Warlord if you're interested in more about what Paul did. If you've got people that are really important to you in your hobby, make sure you tell them how much you appreciate it. All right, take care, guys. See you next time.